Isang magandang araw sa ating lahat. Okay, so for today we will discussing the next topic on forensic chemistry, which is forensic toxicology. Again, I am your teacher, Dr. Mario M. Abesames Jr., the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. Let us first discuss the definition of toxicology. When we say toxicology, this is the study of poison. Anything with regards to poison is under the toxicology. So the definition, the poisons are, these are poisons that are chemically or physical agent that produce adverse response in biological organism. When we say adverse response in biological organisms, ito yung mga tao, tayo, yung mga hayop, yun. So nagkakaroon ng pagbabago doon sa kanyang sistema. Any substance can be toxic if introduced in a dose capable of disturbing the normal physiological homeostasis of the exposed body. So, again, yung poison can only be toxic. It depends on the dose. Okay? So, it depends on the dose. Nagbabago ang normal physiological homeostasis ng ating katawan. Nagbabago. So, yun. So, depende sa dami or what we call dose na sinasabi. Okay. So, the other terms are toxicants are toxic substances from chemicals. Okay. Ito yung mga lason na ginagamit natin or ginagamit synthetically. Okay. So, yung ginagamit sa mga sakahan, ginagamit natin sa pamamatay peste, pamamatay ng mga hayop sa bahay. These are all toxicants. Okay. Okay, yung ating panglinis ng banyo. So, these are toxicants. Okay, so mga lason din yun. Toxins are poisonous substances produced within the living cells of organism. When we say toxins naman, although lason din yun, iyon ay galing sa mga animals o yung may mga buhay. Like for instance, yung mga venom. Ano ba yung venom? Yung kamandag. Saan ba nanggagaling yung mga kamandag? Sa mga ahas, meron tayo minsan nare-rabies tayo, sa mga pusa. These are all toxins na galing sa mga living cells of an organism. Okay, so now, toxicology. Toxicology is the science of poison that studies toxic substances with respect to their sources, kung saan ba nanggagaling. Kung animal, plants, or animal or plants rather. Properties, kung ano ba siya. Kung solid, liquid, or gas, kung yun ba yung pag sinabi natin properties. Mechanism of toxicity, toxic effect, detection, clinical manifestation, and management. So these are the science of toxicology. These are the things that we're going to understand on the study of toxicology. The sources, the properties, the mechanism of toxicity. Hindi naman kasi lahat ng klase ng lason the same on the mechanism. Merong systemic, merong di ba? So iba-ibang klase ng mechanism or basing on the kung paano nyo nilason. Yun ang sinasabi ng mechanism of toxicity. Toxic effects, okay, meron kasing nakakasunog, so yun. Detection, clinical manifestation, and management. Sources. Okay, so based dito sa ating mga things to be considered in toxicology, one of which is your sources. Sources, chemical source. The commonest source are drugs and corrosives. Diba? Yung mga drugs. Kahit yung mga simpleng gamot nating iniinom, yung mga over-the-counter drugs are one of the sources. Kasi kung sobrahan natin yung dose, sabi nga it depends on the dose. Kung marami kang ininom nun, syempre nakakamatay yun, nakakalason yun. Pero if you will be using that drugs as to alleviate your human suffering, it can only be alleviate your human sufferings. Kung sumakit yung ulo mo, mawawala yung sakit ng ulo mo. Pero kung gagamitin mo siya as a source of poison, damihan mo yung dose. Corrosive, ito nga yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kaninang nakakasunog. Plant source, for example, we have the hashish and the cocaine. So, yan. So, yung hashish is it's mataas na form ng marijuana, and the other one is the cocaine. Okay. Animal source, the least but most serious source is the venomous animals such as scorpions, spiders, snakes, and wasps. Ito po yung may mga kamandag. Venomous animals. Example natin dyan. Venomous and poisonous animals. Venomous animal deliver or inject venom into other organism using a specialized apparatus of some kind, usually fangs or a stinger. Yung mga yung mga pangil. The venom is produced in a gland attached to this apparatus. Poisonous animals do not deliver toxins directly. The entire body or large part of it may contain the poisonous substance. These organisms may be harmful when eaten or touched. May mga ganun kasi. May mga animal kasi na hindi ginagamit ang mga ngipin or fangs or yung mga Meron din tayong pag hinawakan natin. Even plants nga di ba? Even plants nga may pag hinawakan natin minsan nakakalason. May mga hayop din na ganun. Ginagamit nila yung buong katawan nila para in a way maprotektahan nila yung sarili nila. Ganun naman yun di ba? So kahit naman yung ahas hanggang hindi natin sila sinasaktan, hindi rin naman tayo sasaktan. Ganun yun Kasi, kaya tayo natatakot sa kanila, kasi nga, in a way, baka tayo kagatin, kasi poisonous nga sila Kasi yun yung way nila para maprotektahan nila yung sarili nila. Okay, so, yun yung reason kung bakit. Okay, so these are the WAP or sting or venom. Ito yun. WAPs or sting. Yung parang, yung yung tinutusok ka. Diba? Ano ba yung example natin ng may mga sting? Example natin are mga bees. Diba? Nakakamatay ang bees. Mind you, nakakamatay ang mga bees pagka inano ka kinagat ka ng maraming bees. Kasi ang bees contains formic acid. Okay? Kapag kinagat ka ng mga bees, even the langgam, meron yung sting di ba? Pag kinagat ka ng langgam, pag pinotakti ka ng langgam at kinagat ka ng maraming langgam at putakti, ayan, ibig sabihin nun, marami ka ng formic acid na mapo-form sa katawan mo. So, kapag nag-oxidize sa katawan mo, yung formic acid na dinala lahat ng mga bees and ants na to, nagpo-form ng aldehyde yon. Yung aldehyde, ano ba yung aldehyde? In the layman term, ang tawag nyo doon is formalin. Ibig sabihin, buhay ka na, inimbalsa mo ka na. Diba? Ganun yun. So, eventually, titigil yung pagtibok ng puso mo kasi meron kang aldehyde sa katawan mo. And eventually, mamamatay ka. Na-poison ka ng kanilang formic acid. Okay? Androctotonous bicopolar. Ayan, example natin na may mga lason. We have also the Cerastes vipera, yung mga ahas. Okay? Ginagamit nila yung mga fangs nila na yan in order to introduce the toxins. Okay? Okay? Tetrodotoxin in the puffer piece. Okay? Yan ang mga example ng may mga toxins. Yun mga samples na may mga toxins na medyo iiwasan natin. Sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, yun yung pananggalang nila in order for us para hindi sila magulo. Para din naman tayo, di ba? Pag ginulo tayo, mananakit tayo. Ganon din sila. Kapag ginulo natin sila, mananakit din sila. Natural lang yon. Kaya kapag nakakita ka ng ahas, huwag mo na lang pansinin kasi hindi ka naman niya sasaktan kung hindi ka rin naman niya sasaktan. Di ba? Parang may hugot, Okay. Okay. So, sites of toxic actions. Local or non-specific. Whenever the poison contacts the biological system, it starts its harmful effect. It does not require a specific site or receptor to elicit its effect, such as toxicity by acid or alkalis. So, local, non-specific. So, wala siyang tinatarget. Okay? So, wala siyang tinatarget na organ mo. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, once na pumasok sa katawan mo yan, okay? So, wala siyang specific site or receptor para atakihin niya para malason ka. That is what we call the local or non-specific. The remote or systemic, another one. The poison attack affects or a system far from its portal of entry. So, remote or systemic. Yung buong sistema mo, okay? Yung buong sistema mo, aatakihin niya in order to penetrate your body para nga malason ka. Local and remote. Okay. The poison has the capacity of acting local and systemically. Oxalic example is an example of this poison, oxalic acid. Okay, so it can be local and remote. Okay, so yun yung mga klase ng ating sites of action, local and remote. So isang systemic at saka isang non-specific. Pero we can do both. We have local and remote, systemically and non-specifically. Duration and frequency of exposure, acute. Pag sinabi natin acute, okay, acute poison, application of a single or short term, less than a day, dosing of a substance to cause toxicity. Okay, short term lang yon pag sinabi nating acute. Subacute, toxicity is expressed after repeated application for a duration less than half-life expectancy of the toxic material. So, subacute yun, unti-unti. Okay? So, repeated application yon. And eventually, after the repeated application, after na sunod-sunod mo na siyang ginagawa yon, it will become chronic. Okay? Expression of toxic symptoms only after repeated exposure to a chemical in doses regularly applied to an organism for a time greater than half of its life expectancy. Yan yung duration of frequency of exposure. Okay, we have the acute, the subacute, at saka sa chronic. Kung madalas ka na doon, talagang chronic na yung nangyayari. Unti-unti di ba? So dumadami, nagiging chronic na yung chronic na yung inyong exposure doon sa lason. Next one is type of toxic mechanism. Direct. The poison itself can cause toxic effect as in corrosives. Okay, so direct, pinainom mo, di ba? Nilason mo, pinainom mo, that is what we call direct. Okay, so indirect, toxicity results from the interaction of the poison with the biological activity within the biological system, binding to the cell membrane to change in their function or structure, thus affecting their normality. So, pag sinabi nating indirect, pag sinabi nating indirect, tawag dito, hindi siya direktang mong nilalason Gone. Okay? So, interference with enzymatic reactions, formation of metabolites which are more toxic than the parent poison, effects on the DNA. So, yun nagiging long-term pagka-indirect. Okay? So, naapektuhan ng ating enzymatic action, yung pagpoproduce mo ng energy na naapektuhan because of nagkakaroon ng interference. Okay? Nagkakaroon ng metabolites na, or ibig sabihin nagiging byproduct na nagiging more toxic as compared with the original poison na pumasok sa iyo. And eventually, it affects yung DNA natin. Okay, classification of toxic agents. According to the target organ, they are acting on it. So we have hepatotoxic and nephrototoxic. When we say hepatotoxic, ito yung mga lason na ang tinatarget is your liver. Okay? When we say nephrotoxic, Okay, nephrotoxic, ang tinatarget is your kidney. Okay, so ang target organ natin sa hepatotoxic is your liver, your nephrotoxic is your kidney. Okay, according to their use, so food additive, drug, pesticide, yan, di ba? So food additive, ano ba lagi ang inaano natin diyan? The digestive system natin, kaya usually nagkakaroon tayo dyan, sabi nyo, ng colon cancer. Yung drugs, yung mga utak natin, the central nervous system. Yung pesticide natin can also be including the central nervous system. So yun, according to their use. Food additive, drug and pesticide is one classification of toxic agents. According to their source, animal or plant. As I made mention, may mga animals tayo na may mga toxic agents at may mga plant din tayo. 'Di ba nabalitaan niyo na yung mga bata na namatay na kumain ng ano tawag dito, yung kamoting kahoy, because kamoting kahoy naturally contains cyanide. And unfortunately, yung mga bata, siguro sa gutom ng mga bata, inilaga nila yung kamoting kahoy na hinugasan lang, hindi binalatan. And the balat contains the cyanide. Naka-experience na siguro kayo na maglaga ng kamoting kahoy na medyo mayroong naiwan na balat, di ba? Medyo mapait because it contains cyanide. Okay. According to their effects, so carcinogen and mutagen. Pag sinabi natin carcinogen, so ibig sabihin natin ng carcinogen, there are carcinogenic. And mutagen are compounds that can be mutated. Nagbabago ng anyo. Okay? So carcinogen, when we say carcinogenic, that are cancerous, and mutagens can be mutated, can be transformed into another form. According to their physical state, as I have made mention, pwede diyang gas, pwede diyang liquid, pwede diyang solid. Okay, so yun, di ba? During the early time, di ba, ang nagkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag na yung kapag may kasalanan during the early times, during the early time kapag ang isang tao ay na-convict na may kasalanan, ang inaano natin is gas poisoning. Pinapasok siya sa isang chamber, tapos pinapausukan siya ng poisonous gas. Liquid, very common yan, di ba? So sa atin lang supermarket, marami tayong mga liquid poisons di ba? Solid, marami tayong solid. Even sabi natin, even drugs are considered as poison. It depends on the dose, sabi nyo. So these are according to the physical state, according to the itsura. According to their chemistry, the amines and the hydrocarbons. It depends on the composition. Okay, so it depends on the composition, it depends on the chemical reaction of a particular poison entering into your system. Okay, so according to their chemistry. According to their poisoning potentiality. So, meron tayong extremely toxic. Okay, yung sinasabi natin, isang shot lang, patay ka na. Slight toxic. Pag nagpakamatay ka, maaagapan pa ng konti. Diba? So, kapag naisugod ka sa ospital, maaagapan ka pa kasi slight toxic lang yung inunom mo. Diba? So, pagka extremely toxic na, hindi ka na talagang bubula na agad yung bibig mo. Okay? So, according to the biochemical mechanism of action, alkylating agent and inhibitor. Okay, so these are the factors that we should consider in the determination of your poisons. So factors affecting action of poison. Paano ba may mga factors kung paano nakakaapekto ang poison based on its action. So factors related to the poison. Dose, as I have said, kanina ko pa sinasabi yung dose. A basic principle in toxicology kasi yan So it depends on the amount. Okay, dose is the amount of chemical that comes into contact with the body or gets inside the body. Depende sa dami, kung konti, kung medyo konti, kung medyo madami or madami. Okay, so sabi nga natin, so yung ano nun yung severity ng toxicity nun, it depends on the dose. Okay? The increase of dose will increase the severity of toxicity. Okay pa. Physical status. Gaseous state is more toxic than liquid state than the solid state. Kasi inaamoy mo yan eh. 'Di ba? Direktang direktang pumapasok sa katawan mo. Naka-experience na ako diyan na nakakita na lason sa farm namin na nag-spray ng pesticide na without any protective gear na nasa na nag-spray siya ng pesticides doon sa mga halaman, and eventually nanginig na siya because na-inhale niya yung gaseous state ng pesticide. Okay, so physical state. Okay, purity. This depends on the impurity of the poison, or what we call, pag sinabi nating purity, yung amount yung kanyang yung amount ng solute doon sa solvent. Kapag yung purely solute yun, syempre mas nakamamatay yun. If the impurities are more toxic than the poison, the toxicity be more, and vice versa. Sabi nga, it depends on the purity. Pagka mataas ang solvent, definitely mababa ang dose nun. Okay, factors related to the individual, yung age. Okay. So, yung age natin, yung edad natin, okay, yung edad natin na ang nakakaapekto yon sa affect or epekto ng isang poison. Kung matanda na, tapos bata, so it depends on the kasi because of its because doon sa kanyang sa immunity. Okay, yung health, basically. So, self-explanatory. Pag sinabi nating health, pag yung mahina at nalason, syempre, mamamatay na yun agad-agad as compared with the healthy one. Okay, sensitivity and sex. Yung sex, more on, mas mabilis maapektuhan ang mga babae as compared with the lalaki. So, yun yung yun ang explanation with regards to sex. Okay. Factors related to the mode of exposure, inhalation. Okay. So, mas mataas ang inhalation, intramuscular, ingestion, and skin contact. So, these are the mode of exposure. Ibig sabihin, kung paano mo nakuha? Sa pag-inhale, intramuscular, sa pag-ingest, at skin contact. Okay. Factors related to environment. Temperature is one. Diba? Kapag mainit, kapag malamig. So, it depends on the temperature, the pressure, the humidity. The radiation can cause alteration on poison status. Pag mataas, nagkakaroon kasi ng meron kasi tayong mga compounds or poisons that are volatile. Pag sinabi nating volatile, nag-evaporate sa environment natin. Okay, poisoning as a cause of death can be proven only with toxicological analysis that demonstrate the presence of the poison in the tissues or body fluids of the disease. We can only identify poisoning kung magkakaroon tayo ng post-mortem examination. The doctor identify kung talagang nilason talaga yung tao na yon. Pero kasi kung makikita mo lang siya physically, kung hindi mo ma-identify kasi talaga na ang isang tao ay nalason talaga kasi disease and poison yung itsura niya pareho. Lalo na kung unti-unti kang nilalason, di ba? So, unti-unti kang nilalason, unti-unti humihina yung katawan mo, kaya ang akala ng mga tao, nagkasakit ka lang, pero nung pala nilalason ka na, ina-arsenic ka na pala. Okay, so yun. Pero iba yung a healthy individual, tapos biglang nagkasakit ng pagdudahan mo na yun. Di ba? Healthy individual eh. Tapos eventually, nagkasakit ng baka may something. Okay. Presence of poisons can be demonstrated only by chemical methods of isolation and identification. It can only be done through lab, sa laboratory. If toxicological analysis are avoided, death may be ascribed to poisoning without definite proof. Okay, kaya kung walang analysis, hindi natin po pwedeng sabihin na at wala tayong pruweba ng isang bagay o isang tao, ang isang buhay ay nilason. Okay. Samples required for toxicological analysis from autopsies. Blood. The best place of autopsies is from femoral or iliac veins. Okay, then axillary veins in consequence. No samples from jugular veins may be contaminated by reflux from upper thorax. General body cavity, highly contaminated by intestinal contents. Okay, so heart or great vessel in chest, post-mortem diffusion of drugs and alcohol from the stomach as aspirated vomit contaminate these sites. Okay, kaya kung kukuha tayo ng sample, lagi doon sa femoral, iliac veins, and axillary veins. Hindi tayo pwedeng kumuha sa jugular, sa general body cavity, sa loob ng tiyan, and then heart or great vessels in the chest. Because this is the reason. Sa jugular, may be contaminated by reflux from upper thorax. So, ibig sabihin, contaminated na yon. Kung general body cavity, yung laman loob, highly contaminated by intestinal contents, yung mga laman nun. Diba? So, post-mortem diffusion of drugs and alcohols. Okay, so these are the required for toxicological analysis from autopsies. Urine can also be considered as a source. Okay, so there are 20 to 30 ml urine in the sterile without preservatives. Feces, we have in heavy metal are arsenic, lead, and mercury. We can use feces. Vomit and stomach contents can be used para ma-identify natin kung yung tao ay nagkaroon ng poisoning. Organs, the most common organ saved for analysis is liver. Bile can be helpful in morphine and chlorpromazine, lungs in some cases of solvents. Hair and nails, heavy metals poisoning, recently prolonged use of opiates. So nakikita natin dyan yun sa hairs and nails. Kaya nga di ba sa United States, ang ginagamit na nila is hair in the detection of opiates. Yung mga drug addicts, ang ginagamit na nila is hair. Kasi sa blood, madaling nawawala yung mga drugs. Yung mga lalo na yung mga drug addicts. Mechanism of toxicity. Okay? Delivery from the site of exposure to the target. Okay. So, meron kang target organ, so, i-deliver niya yung poison from the target organ. Number 2, reaction of the ultimate toxicant with the target molecule. Okay, magre-react na ngayon yung ating poison doon sa ating target molecule. Cellular dysfunction and resultant to toxicities. Okay, so cellular dysfunction. Yung mga cell functions natin, hindi na siya nagmo-normalize ng functioning. Step 4 is repair or disrepair. Okay, let us now discuss it one by one. Step 1, deliver from the site of exposure to the target. Deliver is the movement of the toxicant from the site of exposure to the site of its action. Meron siyang mode, meron siyang tina-target, yung tina-target organ sabi. 'Di ba? Meron siyang tina-target na organ para mawala ng function. Okay. Intensity of the toxic effect depends on the concentration and persistence of the ultimate toxicants at its sites of action. Depends on the concentration. Again, the dose ulit. pinag-uusapan na naman natin is the dose. Ultimate toxicant is the chemical that reacts with the endogenous target molecule, for example, resorptor, enzyme, DNA, protein, lipid, or critically alters the biological environment, initiating structural and or functional alteration that results in toxicity. So, sinisira na niya yung tamang function ng mga different systemic organs sa katawan mo. Okay? So, yung mga receptors, yung mga enzyme, sinisira na niya. Yan na natawag nating ultimate toxicants. Okay. So, now, let's move on to the factors of affecting delivery. So, absorption, distribution toward the target, reabsorption, and toxication. Okay, kung paano inabsorb yun? Inabsorb ba siya ng mabilis? So, yun eh. So, it depends. So, one of the factors yun. Kung inabsorb siya ng mabilis, di mabilis ka rin malalason. Distribution towards the target. Kung mabilis siya ma-distribute doon sa target organ mo, mabilis kang malalason. And the other one is your reabsorption and then toxication. Yung toxication, yung pagkalason na mismo. Okay. Okay. Itong pink one naman ito, kung paano natin aalisin. So, we have the presystemic elimination. We are using the lavage method, di ba? Yung inaano ng tube sa bibig, tapos nilalagyan ng madaming tubig, and then para may spill out niya, para maisukat niya yung mga lason na inilabas niya. Distribution away from the target, so aalisin natin at para yung target organ hindi niya mapasukan. Excretion, ilabas, and detoxication. So with the use of chemicals, it can be detoxified. Okay. Okay. Exposure site. Okay. So sabi natin kanina, skin or the gastrointestinal tract, inhalation or injection. Okay. Okay, so now, ito yung exposure site, skin. Pwede sa skin, sa balat mo yan. Okay, Mercury's 1, di ba? GIT or the gastrointestinal tract. Yan yung mga common na iniinom ng mga nagpapakamatay. Inhalation, yung sinisinghot, at saka yung injection. Normally, ang injected are mga drugs, di ba? Toxicant. Okay? So, absorption, distribution toward the target of organ, reabsorption, toxication. So yung delivery nun, so ito yung elimination natin, kung paano natin i-eliminate. So, ultimately, there's an ultimate toxicant target molecule, protein, lipid, microfilament, and DNA receptor. Ito yung tina-target niya na molecule. Okay, so bakit ito yung tina-target niyang molecule? Para maano nga natin, para masira mo yung sistema mo. Para hindi ka para yung physiological function mo, ibig sabihin, hindi na magkaroon hindi ka na mag-function physiologically. Absorption versus presystemic elimination. Absorption is the transfer of chemical from the site of exposure into the systemic circulation. The rate of absorption is related to concentration. Tama naman, di ba? Of the chemical of the absorbing substances. Kung concentration, it depends on the concentration. Kung puro, mas mabilis. Kung hindi siya ganun kapuro, hindi naman din mabilis. The area of the exposed site, okay, kung saan siya in-expose, the characteristics of the epithelial layer through which absorption takes place, where the intensity of the subepithelial microcirculation, the physicochemical properties of the toxicant, ibig sabihin yung chemical composition. Kung ano ba yung composition ng chemical ng toxicant na yun that can be entered into your system. In general, lipid-soluble chemicals are absorbed more readily than our water-soluble substances. So, ibig sabihin Lipid soluble, yung mga fat soluble chemicals na madali yung ma-absorb kaysa sa water soluble substances, yung natutunaw ng tubig. So mas mabilis ang lipid soluble or fat soluble chemicals. Okay. Presystemic elimination means removal of the toxicant during its transfer from the site of exposure to the systemic circulation. First, pass through the GIT of mucosal cells and liver. GIT mucosa in the liver may eliminate a significant fraction of toxicant during its passage through these tissues, decreasing its systemic availability. For example, ethanol oxidation in the gastric mucosa, morphine glucocoronation in intestinal mucosa in the liver. Okay, distribution and away from the target. During the distribution of phase, toxicant enter the extracellular space and may penetrate into the cell. Lipid-soluble compounds more readily into the cells by diffusion. Kasi nga, yung ating cells are lipid bilayer. Okay, if you are familiar with the composition of the cells, meron tayong cell membrane. The cell membrane are lipid bilayer, kaya sabi natin, it can capable of, since lipid soluble ang inyong compounds, it can capable of penetrating inside the cell. So therefore, yung mga different organelles of the cells that na hindi na magno-normal function, hindi na magpa-function normally. Highly ionized and hydrophilic toxicant, for example, aminoglycosides are largely restricted to the extracellular space unless specialized membrane carrier systems are available to transport them. Mechanism opposing distribution to a target, binding to plasma protein. Toxicants such as DDT or DDT cannot leave capillaries by diffusion because they abound to plasma lipoproteins. Specialized barriers, brain capillaries lack penetrace and are joined by extremely tight junction. Accumulation and storage as adipose tissues. Okay, it can be accumulated in your adipose tissues where they do not exert significant effects. Okay, excretion versus reabsorption. Excretion is the removal of toxicants from the blood and the return to the external environment. Pag sinabi natin excretion, yung pagtanggal, pag-remove ng lason sa ating mga blood and then to the external environment. Kasi pag naglason tayo, di ba, ang inaano naman natin dyan ang una namang inaanahon yan is blood. It can be circulated into your system. Reabsorption is the reuptake of filtrated toxins by renal tubules across their tubular cells into the peritubular capillaries. Reabsorption by diffusion is dependent on the lipid solubility of the chemicals. Kaya nga sabi natin, kapag lipid soluble ang poison mo, mas madali kang mamamatay because of its it can be really absorbed by your system. Okay. For organic acids and bases, diffusion is inversely related to the extent of ionization because of the non-ionized molecule is small lipid soluble. Okay. The ionization of weak organic acids such as salicylic acid and phenobarbital and bases such as amphetamine, procainamide, and quinidine is strongly pH dependent in the physiologic area. So it depending on the pH, depending on the ionization, or it depending on it will be ionized or non-ionized. Reabsorption is affected by the pH of the tubular fluid. Acidification favors excretion of weak organic bases. Pag nag-acidify tayo, madali tayong mag-excrete ng mga organic bases, weak organic bases. Diba? Pag sinabi natin acid plus base, nagkakaroon ng chemical reaction into salt and water. Alkalinization favors elimination of weak organic acids. Yung alkaline kasi is base, plus weak organic acids, nagkakaroon ng chemical reactions. Toxication versus detoxication. Toxication is a metabolic activation, biotransformation to harmful products. Usually, toxication makes toxicant reactive towards endogenous molecule with susceptible functional group. Okay, pag sinabi nating toxication, iyon yung pagkalason. Sometimes, toxication may have physicochemical properties to alter biological processes or structure. Okay, so yun sinasawag natin na pagbabago ng ating physiological function. Okay, so oxalic acid formed from E-glycol may cause acidosis. Nagkakaroon ng ibang byproducts. Occasionally, chemical acquired structural features and reactivity by biotransformation that allows for a more efficient interaction with specific receptors or enzyme. Nagkakaroon ng ibang identity, okay, or what we call the biotransformation. Okay, so kaya nagkakaroon siya ng effect on the specific receptors or enzyme. Increased reactivity may be due to the conversion into electrophiles, molecules containing an electron-deficient atom with a partial or full positive charge that allow it to react by sharing electron pairs with electron-rich atoms in the nucleophiles. Okay, so full positive charge. Pag sinabi natin electrophiles, these are compounds that are full positively charged. So it allows to react with by sharing of electron pairs. Okay, free radical, molecule that contains one or more unpaired electron in its outer orbital. So ibig sabihin, may negative or positive part na ang inyong compound na madaling mag-attached doon. So kaya nagkakaroon ng increased reactivity. Nucleophiles, uncommon mechanism for activating toxicant, formation of cyanide for amygdalins. Okay. So detoxification or detoxication, transformations that eliminate the ultimate toxicants or prevents its formation. Ito yung baguhin natin yung chemical composition ng poison na hindi na siya nakakalason. Step 2, reaction of the ultimate toxicant with the target molecule. This reaction leads to the injury of the target molecule itself, cell, organelle, cell tissues, and organs, and the whole organism. Cellular dysfunction and resulting toxicities. The reaction of toxicants with target molecule may result in impaired cellular function. Normally, each cell has defined programs. Okay, so these are the programs. We have the programs determine the destiny of cell. Programs control the activity of differentiated cells. Repair or disrepair. Okay, so yun yan. Okay, so this is self-explanatory. Many toxicant after macromolecules which, if not repaired, cause damage at high level of macromolecules. So kung hindi mare-repair, syempre, so magkakaroon na ng damage. The organism tries to repair the damaging effects from toxicant on molecules, cellular and tissue levels. And that ends my lecture. Thank you everyone for listening. Keep safe.